Hey, it's Gabe.
And Michael, but I'm not gonna do anything.
Yeah. So apparently there's this Pokemon creepypasta that Mick wants me to read. So I'm gonna get going on that. Apparently it's about the original Pokemon Red and Green versions, so let's check it out. It's called Come Follow Me.
C-O-M-E.
C-O...
Dirty Minds.
Yes. Okay. During the first few days of the release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan back in 1996, oh, I was born that year, holy crap, a peak of deaths appeared in the age group of 10 to 15. The children were usually not found dead through suicide. Usually by hanging or jumping from heights. However, some were more odd. A few cases recorded children who had began sawing off their limbs, others sticking their faces inside the oven and choked themselves on their own fist, shoving their own arms down their throat.
This is the first time Gabe's reading this.
The few children who were saved by killing themselves saved before killing themselves, showed sporadic behavior. When asked why they were going to hurt themselves, they only answered in chaotic screams and scratched at their own eyes. When they showed what seemed to be connection to this attitude, the Game Boy, they had no response. But when combined with either Pokemon Red or Green, the screams would continue, and they would do their best to leave the room it was located in. This confirmed the authorities' suspicion that the game somehow had a connection to these children and the deaths. It was a strange case because many children who had the same games did not show this behavior, but only a few. The police had no choice but to pursue this, since they had no other leads. Collecting all the cartridges these children had purchased, they kept them sealed away as strong evidence to look over later. They decided the first thing to do was to talk to the programmers themselves. The first person they met was the director of the original game, Satoshi Tajiri, who told them about the deaths surrounding his games. He seemed slightly uneasy, but admitted nothing. He led them to the main programmers of the game, the people responsible for the actual content. The detectives met Takanori Uta, of the main programmers of the game. Unlike Satoshi, he did not seem uneasy, but very kept, explaining that it was impossible to use something like a game to cause such deaths, and also bringing up the point that not all children were affected. He brushed it off as some kind of odd coincidence or mass hysteria. He seemed like he was hiding something, but he wasn't giving it away. Finally, he did say something interesting. Takanori had heard a rumor going around that the music for Lavender Town, one of the locations of the game, had caused some children to go ill. It was only a rumor and had no definite backup, but it was still something to look into. He directed the detectives to Junichi Masuda, the music composer of the series. Masuda had also heard of these rumors, but again said they had no evidence that his music was the cause. Even to prove a point, he played the exact song from the game completely through with no effects to anyone, the detectives nor Masuda himself, feeling anything different or odd. Although they still had their suspicions of Masuda and the music of Lavender Town, it seemed they had reached another dead end. Going back to the cartridges they had seized from their homes of the children, they decided to take a slightly more direct look at the games. They knew that it was these games that gave the children the ill effects, so they took extreme caution. Popping in the cartridge and turning the console on, the game screen booted, the title screen appeared, and the option to continue or create a new game appeared.
Dragon Priest Mask.
I'm sorry, that was Michael. He's playing Skyrim and trying to distract me.
Boogala boogala boogala.
Yes, Skyrim. Boogly. Okay. So, blah, blah, blah. Popping in the cartridge, turning the console on, the game screen booted, the title screen appeared, and the option to continue or create a new game appeared. When they chose to continue the game, stats of the game appeared. They saw the names of the children who had played, usually Red or another simple name. However, the interesting thing was the time played and the number of Pokemon they owned. On every game, the time was very low, and all of them only had one Pokemon in their inventory. They came to the stunning reality that it could not have been the music from Lavender Town that had caused such ill effects in the children, since it has been impossible to reach that part of the game in such a small amount of time, and with only one Pokemon in their inventory. This brought them to the conclusion that something early on in the game had to be the cause. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to scroll down. If it wasn't the music, nor the title screen, it had to be something within the first few minutes of the game itself. They had no choice but to turn off the game and go back to the programmers, asking for a list of all the programmers from Takanori They found surprisingly that one of the programmers had committed suicide shortly after the game was released. His name was Chiro Miura, a very obscure programmer who had provided very little for the game. Even more interestingly, he had requested his name did not appear in the credits of the game, and so it did not. Looking over evidence found at Chiro's apartment, found many notes written in blood marker. Most of it was crumbled or marked out, making it very difficult to read. The few words they could find in the mess was, "Do not enter, watch out," and "Come follow me" in bold. The detectives were unsure what these meant, but they knew they had to have a connection. Further searching, they discovered Chiro was good friends with one of the map designers, Koji Nishino. And this was probably the only reason Chiro had given a part in making the game. Koji Nishino, since the release of the game, had locked himself in his apartment, barely leaving in the night to fetch anything he might need. Oh, I scrolled too far. Dang computer.
Hey, don't blame the computer. It's not its fault. The damn good computer.
Shut up. You play your Skyrim.
I will. Try to find the damn other dragon priest.
Okay, where the heck was I? Sorry about this. Here we are. Koji Nishino, since the release of the game, had locked himself in his apartment, barely leaving in the dark of the night to fetch anything he might need. He told his friends and family that he was mourning for his dear friend Chiro, but they didn't believe this, since Nishino had locked himself up the day the game was put in stores, a few days before Chiro had killed himself. It was troubling, but the authorities finally persuaded Nishino to sit down and speak with him. He looked as if he hadn't slept in days, dark rings under his eyes.
Yes.
Almonds!
Gingerbread marshmallows.
Oh, I thought they were almonds.
Nope.
Like, I thought you were putting almonds in my face, cause...
No, I'm not that mean.
Okay. Except that one thing you did suggest to do with the peanut butter.
If Gabe ever turns gay, before I go to bed, I'm lacing my anus hole with peanut butter. Oh, Gabe's allergic to peanut butter and peanut products, if you didn't catch that by now.
Among other things, but...
Yeah.
Me turning gay or whatever and my allergies are not important now.
Alright, continue.
Yeah, let's continue. Okay, we asked if he knew anything about... Okay, blah, blah, blah. He stunk, his nails had grown black, and his hair was greasy, sticking to the forehead and neck. He spoke in stutters and murmurs, but at least he had something to say. We asked if he knew anything about the children who died after exposure to the game, and it had any connection to the game. He answered them seemingly carefully, choosing his words thoughtfully before answering. He told them that his friend Chiro had an interesting idea with the game, something he wanted to try since he heard the project was starting. Nishino himself knew Takanori, the director and main programmer, for a long time, so he could easily get a mediocre programmer on the project with a little persuasion. It seemed Chiro had convinced Nishino to get him on the project, and it had worked. The detectives knew they were onto something. Yep. Dang it. Friggin' computer. Okay, sorry about this. Really am. Project. It worked. The detectives knew they were onto something. This unknown, obscure programmer, Chiro, had something to do with it. Something. They asked what Chiro's idea was. Why he wanted so badly to have a part in making this children's game. Nishino told him that Chiro never told him much about it, other than a few details every now and then. He wanted to enter a special Pokemon in the game, one completely different from all the others. It would serve as an extra, kind of out-of-place thrill for the player. It wasn't missing, though. Couldn't be. With the gameplay time recorded on the cartridges, it was impossible for the children to have met that Pokemon. Nishino, throughout the entire conversation, seemed to break down even more with every question. The detectives pushed him more and more, searching through his mind for any and every scrap of knowledge that this man had no game and Chiro's intentions. It was when they asked about the notes found in Chiro's home that he snapped. From under the couch Nishino was sitting on, he whipped out a pistol, pointing it straight at the police while backing away a few steps. Then, just as quickly, he brought the pistol to his face. "Don't follow me," murmured Nishino as he stuck the pistol in his mouth and pulled the trigger. It was too quick for the police to react. It was done. Nishino had killed himself, repeating slightly different what was written on one of Chiro's papers. It seemed all the leads had finally died. The team who had created the original game were splitting up, becoming harder to find. It was as if they were keeping a secret. When the police finally managed to talk with anyone who had parts in the game, even the obscure character didn't even know Chiro, and the few who did only seen him once or twice working on the game himself. Throughout all of this, only confirmation they had was that Chiro was indeed the one who had worked on the very early parts of the game. Okay, that's as far as I'm gonna go for this part. Check back in part 2, I guess. See ya. Frickin' trap bad. Okay. Bye.